Hey guys, I'm Blake Daly, and I'm an Air Force officer, so I've got 9 months left in active duty, stationed up in Ogden, so drove down for the event. Got 85 short-term rental units. I just sold that business in a couple of our boutique hotels, and started with one unit, which we're kind of going to talk about today, how you can get your first unit and scale to then, achieve that first level of financial freedom, and then, scale up into commercial Airbnbs and boutique hotels if that's what you like. So.
And I'm Mike Neubauer, and I started off as a landscape photographer, then became a firefighter, natural progression, and wanted to get out of that W-2, so I started learning about real estate investing, wanted to get out as quickly as possible. Short-term rentals was that move, so it took me about 2.5 years to subsidize my W-2 income with the fire department. Stayed on another 2.5 years to get a pension, moved that into other investing. Everything that I own short-term rental wise is out in Maui, Hawaii. That's where I live. And now I also have midterm rentals and long-term rentals in Hawaii and Arizona as well. And I also invest in syndications as well. So I guess it's on me. Okay, so this is how I got started, by reading, listening to podcasts, networking with other investors, and asking a lot of questions. So exactly what you guys are doing here, right? Networking, speaking with other investors, all that kind of stuff. I built a mother-in-law suite onto my house. That's the photo that's up there right now. That was my first divvy into real estate investing. That was in 2016. So right as my son was being born, we built this big addition onto our house. We started making all kinds of cash flow off of it. We never touched any of it. We just kind of let it ride. And then we essentially, because we were adding so much value to our property, we did a cash out refi, and we took all that money and we bought our first short-term rental. We paid cash for it. That one is this one here. I was super clear on what I wanted when I got started, so I knew exactly what I wanted, where I wanted it to be, what building I wanted it in, all that kind of stuff. So I was very aggressive when one came available. Now, we faced a ton of challenges with this. I'll give you a quick example. So with this one, I bought it. I think we got it under contract in January. It was going to close April 1st. So I called my contractor. I said, hey man, I need you April 1st. We got this thing. It's going to be, we got 3 months to get it done. It'll be done by July 1st. We're going to start getting people in there, right? And we put all of our money into this, all of our savings. We cashed out everything. We cashed out the house. We cashed out anywhere we could find money, right? And put this thing down. And so a contractor's like, okay, gotcha. So now we're under contract, and during this time, while we're getting all our bank statements and everything into the bank to get our financing, we also put it up on Airbnb right away. Like, let's take bookings. July 1st, we're going. And so we come to April 1st, that's our closing date, and call up the contractor. I was like, hey man, you ready to get started? He's like, no dude, I thought you said July 1st. I was like, no dude, I said April 1st, man, let's go. Well, he was booked, right? So at that point, I called everybody I could. Everyone was booked. Nobody could take it on. But I had people like waiting from July 1st to get into this place. I got 3 months to get this thing completely renovated and put back up. I didn't know anything, right? So at that point, I got on YouTube. I started watching videos, and I learned, well, it wasn't very hard to rip out carpet. It wasn't very hard to tear down walls. It's a little harder putting them back up, but you make it happen, right? Because it wasn't an option for me to cancel anybody's booking. So stabilize that asset at the end of the day and wore every hat doing it. So point of it is get dirty, right? So I gave myself $40,000 budget for this thing. I already mentioned that the handyman got the dates wrong. I barely knew how to hold a hammer, and I kind of rolled up my sleeves. So if you see this picture here, this is me scraping popcorn ceilings down. So if anybody has done that, it's the messiest thing in the world, right? But at some point, you kind of get good at what you're doing, and you learn all facets of the operation, right? So like for me, we started with that one short-term rental, and we decided like, I need to learn how to clean this thing. I need to learn how to interact with guests on this thing. I need to learn how to basically every aspect of the operation. And then we figured out how to streamline all those things. We learned how to systematize all those things. And then it's just a matter of rolling it into the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And that's kind of how you scale.
Well, my first deal was much easier than Mike's. I bought a renovated house, and I would suggest that. But the first one we bought was with our VA loan, because I'm active duty in the Air Force, and it had a little mother-in-law suite on it. And my wife and I had stayed in some of these, like when she would come out to visit me in college, we would, rent the basement apartments or the mother-in-law suites because that's all we could afford being college students. So I know this thing would rent well, and it actually paid for all of our living expenses, and we cash flowed $100. And just like Mike, when he started out, we did everything ourselves, even the cleaning at sometimes, which I would not recommend, like find a good cleaner. But really learned all of the Airbnb systems and operations by just doing it ourselves, being hands-on with our guests, learning how, what a guest expects when they come to stay at your place, which is gonna vary based on your unit type, and this is a shared space. So just learning that. So we bought it for $207,500, put $2,500 into the furnishing, and that was me and my wife using my truck on Facebook Marketplace, going to pick stuff up and just doing it as lean as we could. Because I had just graduated from college, so I think I literally had like $3,000 in cash and spent $2,500 of it to furnish the place, but I knew I had a paycheck coming like every 2 weeks. So I was like, if we get this thing rented pretty quick, we'll get it rolling. It had zero experience at the time, but like Mike was reading, was listening to podcasts and ready to jump in, and this is our first deal. And then we kind of rolled that experience into, so we bought the house with the guest house and found this nice strategy of we got 2 units in that deal for the price of 1. So like most listing agents, when they see this, they don't see like the rental income potential of that added unit, and will treat it like a price per square foot when they go to price the house. So you might have the same square footage as a normal house, but this one has 2 units and you can rent that other side. So we just started looking for more of these houses with guest houses because we could buy them for around $200,000, like this one with the pool. I think we bought it for $160 pre-foreclosure. And it was 7 blocks away, so we could easily incorporate the operations, use the same cleaning team, go there when we needed to, and create a super listing, which I really like from this strategy, especially getting in for like a low down payment. If you're gonna house hack your first one, you can take the guest house and the main house and rent each of them individually and have the whole place rented as 1 listing. So you can turn 1 property into 3 listings. It allows you to really maximize your occupancy and your revenue with that one house, because you can appeal to different groups like big families, to rent the whole house, and then for like the studios and the guest houses, you can have couples or single travelers to fill up your occupancy. And out of these houses last year, like each one had less than 10 days of vacancy over the whole entire year. So like a 2% or less vacancy rate. So the house, the guest house, the whole place were rented, other than I think one house was 7 days. Like this is pretty awesome. So we took that experience with those couple houses. It was also like renovating hurricane damaged homes during that time. So went through some of those same struggles being my own handyman. But we had surpassed my W-2 income from my Air Force job in that first year through, I think we had like 8 short-term rentals and 3 long-term rentals at the time through that first year. And we had the 8 short-term rentals were 4 of these houses with guest houses, which are pictured up there. And because I surpassed my W-2 income in that first year, I was like, man, that was my 5-year goal. I had my goal set way too low. So now she's like, I gotta go bigger. I gotta go buy an apartment complex now. So I did that and syndicated an apartment complex, and through that learned commercial real estate, learned how to underwrite, learned how to fund and raise money, and how to operate a commercial property. And about that time, just the returns on multifamily got really low. Cap rates were compressing. It didn't really make sense for like a smaller operator to compete against like hedge funds and institutions for, like medium level, like 70 to 100 unit apartment complexes. So I started looking at hotels that I can convert. Like I knew Airbnbs well, I knew commercial real estate well. So I combined the 2 and then bought my first 8 unit. You can go back and slide for a second. So I turned the 8 residential into an 8 units on 1 building, and that allowed me to really like scale in a way that I could kind of get through the all the admin stuff that I did myself with the houses, then I had that level of revenue. Like, okay, I can hire more assistants, more VAs, build out a cleaning staff, so that then I could just kind of pull the strings a little bit more and not have to do everything myself. So this deal kind of was a proof of concept for me that bigger was a little bit better. And then if you go to the next slide, took that into, started to buying hotels. I started telling everybody what I was looking for. Like I felt like I had a strategy that was working well in my area in the Panhandle of Florida where we're at. And through that came these 2 off-market deals that we worked directly with the seller on, and got up to 4 hotels that I bought with my partner, and the first one I bought myself. So we had 5 hotels. In about 13 months we bought all of them. And that allowed us to build out our systems, build out our operations, hire our team, so that we didn't have to do all the work, and we could really be the managers of the managers and like lead the team more so than doing the work ourselves. And also that level of revenue allowed us to invest in the systems and the software that we needed to manage a portfolio like that. Because being a Air Force officer, having a full-time job, I didn't have 40 hours a week to dedicate to the management of the property. So I had to think with the end in mind and scale myself out. And I think this strategy and this asset class with the revenue you can generate, even like on the residential side, you get 8, 10, 11, 12 short-term rentals. You're going to really get to a place where you get yourself out of it and have your team do everything. So wanted to talk about the systems, the automation and the outsourcing, and kind of the phases you go through. I think these are really important parts. So Mike, if you go to the next slide. This is kind of how I picture it and kind of how I went through in the phases, with starting at like the base of that pyramid was your kind of base admin level support staff. And I thought about that as like, with just the houses, I messaged all the guests myself. And when we started buying the hotels, like, all right, again, thinking with the end in mind, I was like, I'm not gonna be the one to message guests because that's gonna burn me out so fast. Like I know how it went. So that's the first thing we hired out, was we hired a team of concierge. I think we started out with 2 or 3 that would cover 24 hours around the clock to message all of our guests. And as we got each hotel would add another member or 2 to that team to continue to like stay back over the system and manage it and make the changes and improve the quality of the team rather than do the actual messaging. And then when we got to like the 2, 3 boutique hotels kind of level, then we could hire our property level staff, our maintenance, our assistant managers, our property managers. And then what that allows is filter out to filter out a lot of the issues that would come to you that you would have to deal with. Now it's like putting people in place that are trained, to filter those issues, to take care of your guests, to take care of the properties, so you don't have to be on site again, so you don't have to be the one doing the things. You can scale your team. And then finally, as you continue to grow, then you have the revenue, then you have the experience, then you have the leadership ability as you kind of scale up through these positions to then hire out the functions of your business. So then we got to a listing manager, a revenue manager, a guest experience manager, and finally a director of operations, which really kind of replaced me in the day-to-day of the business and kind of ran the whole show. He would meet with all those functions of the business to make sure everything was running clean and good, and then I would meet with him once a week on our weekly L10 meeting because we ran on EOS, and then throughout the week as things came up. And of course it took time to get him into that role, but just every week we're spending time together so I could get further out to focus on the big picture of the business and allow him to run the business. You want takeaways?
Sure, well, I can read from the screen. Takeaways, take action, right? I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to with all kinds of real estate investing. Know your market and narrow down your niche. I mean, I know Blake's really good at his market. Me, like, I work in a tiny little subsection of a small town on Maui. That's it. I'm like 2 blocks. That's the only area that I'm buying in because I know that area. I mean, I know that whole city better than anybody probably. I was a firefighter there for 10 years. I lived there forever, and like I know where the skeletons are buried, right? So literally and figuratively, but I know that niche really, really well. Okay, work to scale yourself out, and so like every successful investor that I know of has made those systems, put those systems in place, and learn to kind of move yourself out of them, right? So like, I mean, even with me, I only have 6 units, right? But I started early on where it was like, look, we're gonna make sure that all these units have a lot of similarities, because if something goes wrong, I know what size the mini fridge is in this unit, I know the ceiling fans are the same in all these units, the floors are the same, the paint color's the same, right? It's not sexy, it doesn't have to be sexy. We're not making HGTV here, right? What we're trying to do is make it as simple as possible. So if something goes wrong, it's just a system. We take one thing from here, move it over to here, right? We got the stuff off the shelf at Walmart, Home Depot, Target, wherever it is, you have that supply in-house, right? And then higher cash flow, reinvest to scale faster. We never took any money out of our short-term rentals. We just kept letting it compound. And so, like, we have a lot of equity in our properties, but that also means a lot of cash flow, right? So a lot of people like to scale fast, and if you want to do that, you need to pull that equity and you need to reinvest it. But you get to a point where you can let that equity sit and your cash flow becomes higher. So it's up to you how you want to do that, but like for me, you know, I take a more conservative risk approach, I suppose, on this. But definitely once you get to that point where you're scaled, you know, to where you need to be cash flow wise, then yeah, like you're in a pretty good spot, right?
Yeah. I'd say the last thing that we didn't really include here, but it just came to mind as he was talking through this, is hire VAs sooner than you need them, or sooner than you think you need them, because I can tell you from experience you need them. Like as soon as you incorporate them into your business, it just, and like the first one, even the second one, maybe even the third one, might not be the right fit, but more likely you're probably not in the right place to, you know, train them and get them incorporated into the business. But it's just like a muscle that you have to flex, like going to the gym. Like you have to go through the reps of taking yourself out of the business and just giving the small, simple admin tasks to them so that you can actually focus on running your business, like finding deals, finding money, you know, finding contractors that'll show up on time so you can build and scale, you know, the cash flow so you can continue to grow.
Okay, let's go. Who's got questions?
Okay, I kind of have two, but I'll try to just do it in one. When we were in Kauai earlier this year, we ran into someone that was investing in properties, and they mentioned this great deal. It was like $750K for this condo, and they were renting condos already in that unit, so they knew how much it was, you know, gonna pull in. And at the time for the market rate, it was a great deal. But what we always struggle with is when you are doing short-term rentals, is it better to go local or far away? Because we live here in Utah, so in my mind I was thinking, oh yeah, it's like sexier to have a short-term rental in Hawaii, and it is consistently rented out. Where when we look down here in St. George, we're like, oh, like it's oversaturated, like there's so many Airbnbs, and then there's summer that's like probably empty, and then on the shoulder seasons you're fighting with people that have pools, and if you don't have a pool or a private pool or whatever the situation is, your unit's less and less sexy. And so the stress that we have, and this is why we haven't taken action, is there's just so many options, and it's like, how do you, if you are a little, we're a little more risk adverse, unfortunately, so it's like, how do you take the approach where it's like, Hawaii was great until the pandemic, and then you had like 2 years of, and there's no perfect investment, but like, how do you decide if you're starting out in this? Do you do local, like, how do you crunch the numbers between all that stuff?
100%, I think that's a great question. You touched on a couple things that I think are really, really important, right? Like, where is your risk adversity? For me, I looked all over because I wanted something that I could afford. Maui's extremely expensive. A 2-bedroom condo is going to cost you over $1 million, right? And for those of you who don't know, in Hawaii, anything that you short-term rent has to be in a condominium, and it's essentially a condotel. You got to put 30% down. That's just pretty much the way it is for everything. So if you're looking at $1 million property, you gotta have 350 grand in cash just to take it down. If you need to rehab it, it's gonna cost even more. So Hawaii is not a market for everyone, of course. If you're looking at a $750,000 property, that's a lot. You know, that's 250 grand in cash that you gotta put down, right? But here's the pros to it. Regulations are already in place, right? And when you have regulations already in place, then you're gonna be golden. If you invest in an area where there are no regulations, like I know people have invested in Boise, there's nothing there. It's just kind of like, you can go ahead and short-term rent that until you can't, right? When those regulations start coming in and people can't afford to live there anymore, the government steps in and says, wait a minute, people can't afford to live here because you guys are making all this money off of short-term rentals. We need to crack down on this. So I personally love regulations. I'll only invest in places where there are regulations. That's me. Other people are willing to take that risk. I'm not sure if I'm even getting to your question.
No, that was good. That's good.
And I would touch on the last piece of this, is that I think you're always gonna have better success when you're doing it yourself. I would suggest like self-managing at the beginning, because you're gonna learn so much better and you're gonna care more than a property manager would, and be able to drive more value. Like, you know, property managers might kind of compete in that 80% level, but you can push that 90-95 percentile by just knowing your property better and treating your guests better. So I think like starting in your backyard, and that could be like in the radius around you, you're gonna have a lot more control. You're gonna be able to visit the property, make sure it's being maintained how you want to, make sure that like it always matches the photos that guests see when they, you know, arrive. And just like have more control over that investment, especially if you're gonna, you know, like he was saying, dish out $350,000 for your first short-term rental investment, or just in general. So I think in your backyard. And then the last piece I'll say on this question, because you talked about the oversaturation for this market specifically, I would say most markets that I've seen have, like, they're not just oversaturated across the board. Like, they might be oversaturated on certain segments. So it could be like, for a given market, it could be like 3-bedroom houses are way oversaturated, but 1-bedroom markets or 1-bedroom houses and properties are really underserved. You also have a bigger guest pool, like solo travelers, couple getaways, things like that. So then like a market like the Smoky Mountains, like 3-bedroom and up cabins, way oversaturated. But I know some investors there killing it with 1-bedroom cabins. And they're like renting at about 85 to 90% of what the 3-bedrooms bring in, because they're serving an underserved market. So I'll hand back here.
Where are you hiring your VAs from?
A couple of different places. We were talking about this last night. Upwork is a really good one. Onlinejobs.ph. I found one of my best people ever that's been with me for almost 3 years, and has literally ran more of my business than me over the last like year probably, from Remote Workmate. So those three, what are we talking about?
I use Remote Co sometimes. Onlinejobs.ph, yes. Facebook groups. There's a lot of Airbnb Facebook groups for like VAs. So like they're already there.
And also a place like Upwork, you can kind of filter for the experience and type in like Airbnb guest relations and find people that have actually worked with the company Airbnb that already know the internal system, so it makes it that much easier for you to train and kind of, you know, convey to them what they actually need to do because they understand the other side of it. So I like that. We find a lot of people from Upwork. Yeah.
So kind of goes along with that question. So the top qualities, I imagine, is be a great communicator as far as what we want to see in a VA, and what other skill set do you feel like is really good?
Should we tell her about our about our screening for hiring? So me and Mike go deep on this. I think we like independently did this and talked about it, like, oh crap, we do, like, we both do really well. So what we'll do is like, we'll post our job out there, and we'll have like, you know, replying like with a PDF or like replying to a Word doc, and kind of like test their attention to detail, like did they actually, you know, did you understand the assignment kind of thing. And the next we'll have like a skills test for them based on their ability to answer questions that a guest might ask, and like look up information. And it's stuff that, you know, we'll give to all our different VAs. And another one will be like an English competency test, where it's a, you know, a text box, and they say, you know, reply to this hypothetical guest and give your response. So that way, before we ever meet with that person in interview, we're screening out, you know, the 80% who aren't going to be good in the first place. And then we have a video interview to make sure that they actually, you know, have good spoken English, because when a guest calls or when a guest messages, they want to, you know, be able to talk to somebody that can understand them and like get the, you know, the question answered that they're trying to ask. So I missed any pieces?
No, that's pretty good. We do the same thing.
Yeah, so we go about through 3 tiers, like the pre-screening, that screening interview, and then we'll get to like our top, you know, 2 to 3 or however big a pool we're hiring from, but usually like 2 or 3, and then we'll have a separate interview again just to make sure. Like, you know, the criteria of that interview is different than the screening interview, and we really want to get deep on, you know, again, testing their competency. But yeah, we test all our people before we hire them.
How are you managing your boutique hotels? Are you doing it like your STRs?
So they're very similar. They're like a big short-term rental, but we have, so like our property level staff looks like a property manager, assistant property manager, maintenance, and then all of our team of cleaners. We've gotten up to the size, really it's like a revenue number. And I think some people say, oh, you gotta have 20 units to do this, but really it's like you need this much revenue to cover your staff. So that's who we have on site, but we don't have office for them to come check into. We've got the automated smart lock, or the Wi-Fi enabled smart locks that gives the guests the code, so they show up, they can get right in their room, and they don't have to go through an office. And it's contactless for them, but we have people around that are doing quality control at the the properties, checking the units before check-ins and stuff like that. So we're kind of unstaffed there, and because a lot of these, were mom and pop owner operated, they would live on site in the manager's unit. So we're able to add an additional unit by turning that into a rentable unit, and just like either converting the office to a unit or expanding it to the manager's unit as well to add more space, more heads and beds, more revenue for that unit.
So does the occupant rent it on like Airbnb or on a website?
Yeah, so we have them on Airbnb, Booking.com, our direct booking website, Expedia. I think Vrbo is just for like private spaces or single houses. So we're on all those different sites, but Airbnb is about 70 to 75% of our bookings. Booking.com is about 10%. We started at about 3% with direct bookings, but through we have StayFi, captive Wi-Fi at all our properties, so we collect all of our guest emails, and then we have like a contact list of 5,000 guests or so that have stayed with us. So then we do email marketing to them to turn those people that book through the platform into repeat guests, and then have built our direct bookings up to like 10 or 11 or 12% now. At the time I sold at the end of March.
What was that software that you get to collect the emails from?
It's called StayFi, and it's like captive Wi-Fi. It's awesome. Yeah, for short-term rentals, I would recommend that for everybody, because anybody who checks into your rental, you get everybody's Wi-Fi, or you get everybody's email, because when they go to log on to the Wi-Fi, it's just like when you go to a hotel or the airport or something. It's like put in your name and your email, and you can even add like birth date or something to send them a promotion for like a discounted stay on their birthday. That just allows you to build your guest list, because like Airbnb and Booking.com will hide the guest emails from you because they want to control the guest. But when you start capturing the Wi-Fi, you can turn them into your customers, which is where you get higher margins and more control over the guest experience and everything.
Any other questions? Anyone else?
What platform are you using as a channel manager?
We use, we're laughing because we just, I convinced him to switch to HostAway, and now I'm switching away from HostAway.
And I'm switching away from HostAway too.
I liked HostAway for a long time, but with the boutique hotels, there's a few features that we really needed that we didn't have, like multi-unit functionality and just better task management with our cleaners and handyman. So we're switching to Guesty now, and that's what we're going to use. We actually have our onboarding on Monday. So
Yeah, I think I think HostAway is great. Actually, I don't want to badmouth them. I think everybody's situation is a little bit different in what they're looking for. I think depending on how many units you have and if you're managing other people's properties, I think that I really like Hospitable.
so you're switching back?
I think I might. Yeah, I just have to figure out how to manage other owners' properties on there, but I think I can do that.
It's really good for just the owner side.
But see, Hospitable is great because it's so robust with your auto messages, way more so than any other platform
You
that
can
I've
create
seen.
your own messages too. I use Hospitable and I love it.
It is fantastic for that. Yeah, so that feature alone is worth a lot to me. So
Maybe we'll sit down and dig into it. But the link we gave each other.
I know.
7,000 words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What softwares and calculators are you using to look at different markets? Say, hey, there's a need for this, like the Smokies, or Florida, or some of these different areas.
Real quick, I'll tell you my analyzer. So if you scan that, you can get my structural rental analyzer. But for market data, a big one is AirDNA. AirDNA. Is it .co or .com?
Something like that.
Yeah, but
You'll find
AirDNA, you'll find it. So that's where you can look up and see the number of listings of each bedroom type, and see their occupancy, see their revenue numbers, and how many listings there are. So in a market like like the Smokies, for example, you'll see a ton of 3-bedroom and 4-bedrooms, but not many 1-bedrooms. So it's an underserved kind of segment of that market. So when people say the whole market is saturated, they're probably just not looking deep enough to see what's actually there.
Says the QR campaign has been disabled.
Son of a gun. Well, just go. The link is right below it.
Should put your VA on
Yeah, it might be in this now. I did a review. It's my fault as the manager. And another one is STR Insights. They have, I think, an annual and a monthly plan, so you can dig into market level data to see what has the highest ROI based on what kind of house you're going to buy, or if you're going to your level of furnishings for that house. So then you can see like data of how much you expect to make on your cash on cash, your IRR, whatever kind of metrics you're looking for. You have to pay for that. Airbnb might have a free trial. I don't know.
Airbnb, there's a free version of it. It's just kind of watered down a little bit, I think.
But definitely those two tools definitely worth the cost.
Yeah.
Question, is it AirDNA?
AirDNA.
Yeah.
DNA, like what's in your body?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yep.
What is this, what's a hotel boutique, what, is that what you call it?
Boutique hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's like, think of it as like a mix of like multifamily and Airbnb property. So it's like 50 units and under, it's a hospitality asset. It might have been started out as a motel or hotel and just renovated to, operate on the booking platforms like Airbnb, and just revamped from how they were running it with just, walk-in traffic kind of thing. So it's just kind of a new age hotel.
Do you make it like have a kitchen and all that stuff? or-
Yeah, so a lot of ours, we renovated them to add kitchens or kitchenettes, so they have like the functionality for longer stays. Like 3 of ours are around Air Force bases. So, we have TDY people coming, there's a Navy base there too. So we kind of tailor towards the availability and like the amenities, because those are things that are gonna rank us high in the algorithm. So if we can have a kitchenette, we might have people come stay for a week plus rather than just our normal like 2-3 quick stays, 2 to 3 days. So most of ours do have kitchens, yeah.
How do you balance having a short-term rental that's unique and different, but also automated, so you can be like, oh, this isn't this one's in that one? Is that just like your appliances and paint's the same, but then you're gonna have different decorations in all of them, or?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we do it based on like artwork and like little things that we can swap out. Like sometimes we'll do something kind of funky with like a bedspread or something like that. But we try and keep ours like chic and modern and simple. So it's definitely very classy. We've never had a problem with, occupancy, because, that's another thing you talked about earlier is like occupancy. There's shoulder season, it's down, right? We've been at 90 to 95% year round. So.
Yeah, and I'll say with ours, we do something very similar. So we have anywhere from that first 8 unit to 20 units on each of our boutique boutique hotels. And we have the same kind of like base layer stuff. Like we'll have the same bed frames, the same end tables, the same appliances and coffee stands, and even down to like the amenities like soap, shampoo, stuff like that. But then we'll have different decor and different throw blankets and like color pops kind of in each room to differentiate, and they'll picture different, maybe appeal to different people. Like we have a pink flamingo room in Florida, and then we have like a rainforest room, and then we have one that's all blue with shells and stuff like that. So you have like a different color palette, but all the big stuff is the same. So if something breaks, you know what to replace. We've got our spreadsheet with all our different items. We order all of our supplies in bulk, so then it's easy to do all the turns and have everything swapped out or when it's damaged. You can always find like the decor at Home Goods or TJ Maxx pretty cheaply and easily when you need to replace something like that.